The rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn glistened under the streetlights, but Daniel Carter's heart pounded louder than the storm outside. At 42, he stood at the edge of a truth he'd buried for decades. A truth that could unravel the life he'd built with his 16-year-old son, Ethan. Tonight, he would tell Ethan he was gay, a secret he'd kept since he was younger than his son was now. Daniel paced the living room of their modest brownstone, the walls lined with photos of Ethan's soccer games and their annual camping trips to the Adirondacks. The clock ticked past 8 p.m., and Ethan was late again, probably lost in a book at the library or joking with friends at the diner. Daniel's hands trembled as he rehearsed the words he'd practiced in the mirror for weeks. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you about who I am. But every version of the speech felt like a confession of betrayal, as if he'd been lying to his son his entire life. He stopped pacing when he heard the front door creak open. Ethan shuffled in, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his dark hair damp from the rain. "Yo, Dad, you look like you saw a ghost," Ethan said, tossing his bag onto the couch. His hazel eyes, so much like his mother's, sparkled with the easy confidence of youth. "Sit down, buddy," Daniel said, his voice tighter than he intended. Ethan raised an eyebrow but flopped onto the couch, kicking off his sneakers. Daniel sat across from him, the coffee table between them feeling like a chasm. "There's something I need to tell you. It's big." Ethan's grin faded, his posture stiffening. "What's wrong? Are you sick or something?" "I've been keeping something from you," Daniel started, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not because I wanted to hide, but because I was scared. I'm gay, Ethan. I've always been gay." The words hung in the air, heavy and fragile. Ethan's face was unreadable, his eyes locked on the floor, seconds stretched into eternity. Daniel braced for anger, confusion, anything but the silence that followed. Finally, Ethan looked up, his voice quiet but steady. "Okay, so what does that mean for us?" Daniel blinked, caught off guard. He'd expected a storm, not this calm curiosity. "It means I'm still your dad. I still love you more than anything, but I want to live honestly for once. I've met someone. His name is Marcus, and he makes me happy." Ethan leaned back, processing. "Marcus? Like a boyfriend?" "Yeah," Daniel said, his heart racing. "He's a good guy. I want you to meet him, but only if you're okay with it." Ethan's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "You're dropping a lot on me, Dad. I need to think about this." He stood, grabbing his backpack. "I'm not mad. Just give me some time." As Ethan disappeared upstairs, Daniel sank into the couch, relief and dread warring in his chest. He'd done it. He'd told the truth. But Ethan's reaction was a puzzle he couldn't solve yet. The boy's calm was almost worse than an outburst. What was he thinking? The next morning, Daniel found Ethan at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone over a bowl of cereal. The air felt different, like the storm had passed but left a chill behind. Daniel poured himself coffee, trying to read his son's mood. "So," Ethan said without looking up, "when do I meet this Marcus guy?" Daniel nearly spilled his coffee. "You want to meet him?" Ethan shrugged, his tone casual but deliberate. "Yeah. If he's important to you, I should know him, right?" Daniel nodded, a cautious hope blooming. "How about this weekend? We could grab pizza at Vinny's. Neutral ground." "Cool," Ethan said, and that was that. But as he left for school, Daniel noticed a flicker of something in his son's eyes. Curiosity, maybe, or something deeper. That Saturday, Daniel and Marcus arrived at Vinny's Pizzeria, a cozy spot in Park Slope with checkered tablecloths and the best pepperoni in Brooklyn. Marcus, 39, with curly black hair and a warm smile, fidgeted with his jacket zipper. "You sure he's ready for this?" he asked, his voice soft but tinged with nerves. "He said he was," Daniel replied, though his own stomach churned. Marcus had been a steady presence in his life for 6 months. A history teacher with a passion for jazz and a laugh that made Daniel's heart lighter. But this meeting was a test for all of them. Ethan walked in, his hoodie slightly oversized, his expression guarded but not hostile. He slid into the booth across from them, eyeing Marcus like a detective sizing up a suspect. "Hey," he said, nodding at Marcus. "Hey, Ethan," Marcus said, offering a smile. "Your dad says you're into soccer. You play striker or midfielder?" "Striker," Ethan said, his tone warming slightly. "You into sports?" "Not really," Marcus admitted, chuckling. "But I can talk history all day if you're into that." Ethan smirked. "History's okay. Dad's always dragging me to museums." The conversation flowed easier than Daniel expected, with Marcus asking about Ethan's favorite books and Ethan quizzing Marcus on old jazz records. But Daniel noticed Ethan's glances, the way he studied Marcus's gestures, the way he watched Daniel laugh. It wasn't disapproval, but it wasn't full acceptance either. It was observation. As they left the pizzeria, Ethan hung back, walking beside Daniel. "He's cool," Ethan said quietly. "But this is weird, Dad. I'm trying, okay?" "I know," Daniel said, squeezing his son's shoulder. "I'm proud of you for that." But as they parted ways, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was holding something back, something big. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Daniel tried to keep things normal, driving Ethan to soccer practice, cooking tacos on Tuesdays, but the air in their brownstone carried a new weight. Ethan wasn't distant, exactly, but he was quieter, his usual chatter replaced by thoughtful pauses. Daniel wondered if he'd pushed too far, too fast, introducing Marcus so soon after coming out. Marcus, ever patient, sensed the tension. One evening, as they strolled through Central Park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot, he took Daniel's hand. "You're overthinking it," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Ethan's a good kid. He's just processing." Daniel sighed, watching the sunset paint the sky orange. "I know, but what if he's not okay with this? With us?" "Then we give him time," Marcus said, squeezing his hand. "He's not shutting you out. That's a start." At home, Ethan was spending more time in his room, his door often closed. Daniel knocked one evening, finding him sprawled on his bed, earbuds in, scrolling through his phone. "Can we talk?" Daniel asked, leaning against the doorframe. Ethan pulled out an earbud, sitting up. "Sure. What's up?" Daniel hesitated, then sat on the edge of the bed. "I just want to make sure you're okay. With me. With Marcus." Ethan looked away, his fingers fidgeting with his phone case. "It's not that I'm not okay. It's just different. Like, I knew you and Mom were solid, but I didn't know this about you. It's a lot to wrap my head around." Daniel's chest tightened. "I get that. I wish I'd told you sooner, but I was scared you'd think less of me." Ethan's eyes snapped to his. "I don't think less of you, Dad. You're still you. I just need to figure out what this means for me, too." Daniel nodded, relief mixing with unease. "If you ever want to talk about it, or anything, I'm here." Ethan gave a small smile. "I know." The turning point came unexpectedly. Ethan's school, a progressive high school in Brooklyn, was hosting a talent show, and Ethan had signed up to perform a spoken word piece. Daniel and Marcus attended, sitting in the crowded auditorium. the air buzzing with nervous energy. Ethan hadn't shared what his piece was about, only that it was personal. When Ethan took the stage, his voice was steady, his eyes scanning the crowd. "This is for my dad," he began, and Daniel's heart stopped. The poem was raw, unflinching. A story of a boy grappling with his father's truth, wrestling with love, loyalty, and change. Lines like, "I thought I knew you, but you're still my hero, and truth hurts. But it builds something stronger," hit Daniel like waves, each one breaking him open a little more. The crowd erupted in applause, but Ethan's eyes found Daniel's, holding his gaze for a moment that felt infinite. Marcus squeezed Daniel's hand under the table, tears in his eyes. "He's incredible," Marcus whispered. After the show, Ethan found them outside, his face flushed with adrenaline. "What did you think?" he asked, almost shy. Daniel pulled him into a hug, his voice thick. "I'm so proud of you. That was everything." Ethan hugged back, then glanced at Marcus. "You didn't hate it?" Marcus laughed. "Hate it? Kid, you're a poet." That was powerful. Ethan grinned, and for the first time, Daniel saw something shift. A crack in the wall Ethan had been building, letting a little light through. But the light didn't last. A week later, Daniel overheard Ethan on the phone, his voice low and tense. "I don't know, man. It's weird seeing my dad with someone who's not mom. Like, I'm trying to be cool with it, but..." He trailed off and Daniel's heart sank. He backed away, not wanting to eavesdrop further, but the words lingered like a bruise. That night, Daniel sat Ethan down again. "I heard you on the phone," he admitted. "I'm not mad, but I need to know what's going on with you." Ethan's face reddened, but he didn't look away. "It's not about you being gay, Dad. It's Mom. I miss her. And seeing you with Marcus, it's like you're moving on, and I'm stuck." Daniel's throat burned. He hadn't realized how much Ethan was carrying. "I miss her too. Every day. Marcus doesn't replace her. No one could. But I spent so long hiding who I was, even from her. I don't want to hide anymore." Ethan nodded, his eyes glistening. "I get that. I need time to catch up." Daniel reached for his son's hand, a gesture he hadn't done since Ethan was small. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." As winter settled over Brooklyn, Daniel and Marcus grew closer, their dates shifting from cautious coffee shop meetups to cozy evenings at Marcus's apartment in Harlem, filled with jazz records and late-night talks. Ethan joined them sometimes, slowly warming to Marcus's easy humor and knack for storytelling. But Daniel still sensed a distance in Ethan, a hesitation that lingered in his silences. One snowy afternoon, Ethan asked to talk alone. They sat on the stoop of their brownstone, the cold biting through their coats. "I've been thinking," Ethan said, his breath visible in the air, "about you and Marcus. About Mom. About everything." Daniel braced himself, his heart pounding. "And..." Ethan looked at him, his eyes clear and resolute. "I want you to be happy, Dad. Like really happy. And I think Marcus makes you that way. I'm not gonna lie, it's still weird sometimes. But I'm okay with it. I want to be okay with it." Daniel's vision blurred with tears. He pulled Ethan into a hug, the snow falling softly around them. "You have no idea how much that means," he whispered. Ethan hugged back, his voice muffled. "Just don't make me call him Dad. Okay?" Daniel laughed, the sound breaking the quiet of the street. "Deal." Spring arrived in New York, painting the city with bursts of green and the hum of renewal. Daniel felt it too. A lightness in his step, a sense that he and Ethan were finding their way. Marcus had become a steady part of their lives, joining them for movie nights or cheering at Ethan's soccer games. But Daniel knew Ethan's acceptance was still a work in progress, a fragile bridge they were building together. One Saturday, Marcus suggested a day trip to Coney Island. "It'll be fun," he said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Rides, hot dogs, the boardwalk. A chance to just be." Ethan, to Daniel's surprise, agreed without hesitation. "As long as I get to pick the music for the drive," he said, already scrolling through his playlist. The day was perfect, sunny, with a breeze carrying the scent of salt and popcorn. Ethan dragged them onto the cyclone, laughing as Daniel clung to the safety bar, while Marcus snapped photos of their terrified faces. On the boardwalk, they shared a towering ice cream cone, Ethan teasing Marcus for getting chocolate on his nose. For the first time, Daniel saw his son relax completely around Marcus, the tension in his shoulders gone. As they sat on a bench overlooking the ocean, Ethan turned to Marcus. "So, how'd you and Dad meet, anyway?" Marcus glanced at Daniel, a shy smile playing on his lips. "At a jazz club in the village. Your dad was there alone, looking like he was carrying the weight of the world. I offered to buy him a drink, and well, here we are." Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting to the waves. "That's cool. Mom used to say Dad was a terrible dancer, but he'd try anyway." Daniel laughed, the memory of Sarah's teasing warming his heart. She wasn't wrong. Ethan smiled, but there was a flicker of sadness in his eyes. Daniel reached for his hand, a silent reassurance. Marcus, sensing the moment, stood. "I'm gonna grab some water. You too good?" "Yeah," Ethan said, his voice soft. As Marcus walked away, Ethan turned to Daniel. "I'm starting to get it, Dad. Why you're happier now. It's not just Marcus. It's you being you." Daniel's chest ached with gratitude. "You're the best thing in my life, Ethan. Always will be." Ethan leaned against him just for a moment like he used to when he was little. "I know, but life, as always, had other plans." A week later, Daniel got a call from Ethan's school. Ethan had been in a fight, a rare occurrence for a kid who usually avoided trouble. Daniel rushed to the principal's office, his mind racing with worry. Ethan sat in a chair, a bruise blooming on his cheek, his expression defiant. The principal, a stern woman named Ms. Rivera, explained that Ethan had punched another student, Tyler, after a heated argument in the cafeteria. "What happened?" Daniel asked, his voice calm but firm. Ethan crossed his arms, staring at the floor. "Tyler was talking trash. About you and Marcus." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What did he say?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "He called you a slur. Said stuff about how you're not a real dad because you're with a guy. I told him to shut up, and he shoved me. So I hit him." Daniel's heart twisted. Anger at Tyler, pride in Ethan's loyalty, and guilt that his truth had put his son in this position. "Ethan, you can't just—" "I know." Ethan cut in, his voice sharp. "I know I shouldn't have hit him, but I wasn't gonna let him talk about you like that." Ms. Rivera sighed. "Ethan's suspended for 3 days. We have a zero-tolerance policy for fighting. But I'll speak to Tyler's parents about his behavior, too." At home, Daniel sat Ethan down in the living room. "I'm proud you stood up for me," he said, choosing his words carefully. "But fighting isn't the answer. You could have gotten hurt." Ethan's eyes flashed. "You don't get it, Dad. I wasn't just defending you. I was defending us. Our family." Daniel froze, the weight of Ethan's words sinking in. "You don't have to fight my battles, kid." "Maybe not," Ethan said, his voice softer now. "But I wanted to. You're my dad. Daniel pulled him into a hug, his throat tight. I love you, Ethan. More than you'll ever know. The suspension gave Daniel and Ethan unexpected time together. They spent it fixing up the brownstones' backyard, planting flowers Sarah had loved. Marcus joined them one afternoon, bringing a tray of lemonade and his usual easy humor. As they worked, Ethan opened up more, sharing stories about school, his friends, and even his fears about the future. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Ethan turned to Marcus. You're not so bad, you know? Marcus grinned. High praise from a teenager. I'll take it. Ethan laughed, then grew serious. I'm glad you're around. Dad's different with you. Happier. Daniel's heart swelled, but before he could speak, Ethan added, just don't break his heart. Okay? He's been through enough. Marcus met Ethan's gaze, his voice steady. I promise. As summer approached, Daniel noticed a change in Ethan. He was more open, more himself, even inviting Marcus to his end-of-year soccer banquet. But Daniel still sensed a shadow, a question Ethan hadn't asked. It came one night as they washed dishes together, the kitchen filled with the scent of garlic and basil. Dad, Ethan said, scrubbing a plate, did Mom know? About you? Daniel paused, the question cutting deeper than he expected. Yeah, she did. We talked about it before we got married. She loved me anyway, and we made it work. You were our world. Ethan nodded, his hands still in the soapy water. I'm glad she knew. It makes it feel less like a secret. Daniel dried his hands, resting a hand on Ethan's shoulder. No more secrets, okay? Just us. Ethan smiled, a real smile, and for the first time, Daniel felt the weight of his truth lift completely. Summer in Brooklyn brought long days and warm nights, the city alive with street festivals and the hum of possibility. Daniel, Ethan, and Marcus settled into a new rhythm, their lives intertwining like the vines climbing the brownstones fence. Ethan's acceptance grew steadier, but Daniel knew his son was still navigating the complexities of their evolving family. One humid July evening, Ethan suggested they host a barbecue in their backyard. Invite Marcus's friends too, he said, flipping through a cookbook. Make it a real party. Daniel raised an eyebrow, surprised. You sure? That's a lot of people. Ethan grinned. Yeah, I want to see what kind of crew Marcus rolls with. The barbecue was a hit. Marcus's friends, artists, teachers, and a jazz musician named Lena, filled the backyard with laughter and stories. Ethan held his own, charming them with his quick wit and even helping Marcus at the grill. Daniel watched from the porch, a beer in hand, marveling at how effortlessly his son fit into this new world. Lena, the musician, pulled Ethan aside to show him her guitar, and soon they were jamming, Ethan's clumsy strumming drawing cheers. Marcus leaned against Daniel, his voice low. He's something else, your kid. Daniel smiled, his heart full. Yeah, he really is. But later, as the guests left and the fireflies began to glow, Ethan grew quiet. He sat on the porch steps, staring at the stars. Daniel joined him, sensing the shift. What's on your mind, buddy? Ethan hesitated, then spoke. I was thinking about Mom, about how she'd love this, us all together happy. But it also feels like I'm letting her go a little. Daniel's chest ached. He sat beside Ethan, their shoulders touching. You're not letting her go. She's part of us, always. Marcus being here doesn't change that. Ethan nodded, his voice barely audible. I know. It's just hard sometimes. Daniel wrapped an arm around him. I miss her too. But she'd want us to keep living, you know? To keep finding joy. Ethan leaned into him, a silent agreement. They sat there for a long time, the night wrapping around them like a blanket. The next challenge came unexpectedly. Marcus's sister, Carla, was getting married in upstate New York, and Marcus invited Daniel and Ethan to join him. "It's a big deal," Marcus said, his eyes hopeful but nervous. "My family's traditional. They know about us, but meeting you both is a whole other thing." Daniel glanced at Ethan, who was sprawled on the couch playing a video game. "You up for a road trip?" Ethan paused the game, considering. "Yeah, why not? But if they're weird about it, I'm out." The drive to the Catskills was filled with Ethan's playlist. Everything from hip-hop to classic rock, and Marcus's terrible singing, which had Ethan laughing so hard he nearly spilled his soda. But as they neared the venue, a rustic barn surrounded by rolling hills, Daniel felt a knot of anxiety. What if Marcus's family rejected them? What if Ethan felt out of place? Carla greeted them warmly, her smile genuine as she hugged Marcus and shook Daniel's hand. "I'm so glad you're here," she said, then turned to Ethan. "You must be the famous Ethan. Marcus says you're a soccer star." Ethan blushed, shrugging. "I'm all right." The wedding was beautiful, with fairy lights and wildflowers, but Daniel noticed the sidelong glances from some of Marcus's older relatives. During the reception, an uncle approached, his tone polite but pointed. "So, Daniel, you're Marcus's friend?" Daniel felt Ethan tense beside him. Before he could respond, Ethan spoke up, his voice clear. "He's my dad's boyfriend. They're together." The uncle blinked, caught off guard, but nodded and moved on. Marcus squeezed Daniel's hand, whispering, "Your kid's got guts." Daniel grinned, pride swelling. "Always has." Later, as they danced under the stars, Ethan watched from a table, a small smile on his face. When Marcus pulled Daniel onto the dance floor, Ethan gave a mock groan but didn't look away. For the first time, Daniel felt like they were a family, not perfect but real. Back in Brooklyn, Ethan started opening up more, even asking Marcus for advice on a history project. But Daniel knew his son was still wrestling with something. It surfaced one evening as they walked home from a diner, the city buzzing around them. "Dad," Ethan said, kicking a pebble, "do you think people will always give you crap for being with Marcus?" Daniel considered the question, his heart heavy. "Some will, but most people, they're too busy with their own lives to care." "Why do you ask?" Ethan shrugged, but his voice was serious. I don't want you to get hurt. Not after everything." Daniel stopped walking, turning to face his son. "Ethan, the only thing that could hurt me is if you weren't okay. You're my world." Ethan's eyes shone with unshed tears. "I'm okay, Dad. I just want you to be, too." They hugged in the middle of the sidewalk, oblivious to the city moving around them. Daniel felt the last pieces of their old life and new one clicking into place, imperfect but whole. By fall, Daniel, Ethan, and Marcus had found a balance, their lives woven together like the threads of a tapestry, each distinct but stronger together. Ethan's 17th birthday was approaching, and Daniel wanted it to be special, a celebration of their new normal. He and Marcus planned a surprise party at the brownstone, inviting Ethan's friends, Marcus's sister Carla, and even Lena, the jazz musician Ethan had bonded with. The backyard was transformed with string lights and a makeshift stage for Lena's band. Ethan walked in, expecting a quiet dinner, only to be met with cheers and a poorly sung happy birthday. His face lit up, his laughter cutting through the crisp October air. As the party buzzed, Daniel watched Ethan move through the crowd, high-fiving friends and joking with Carla. Marcus slid beside him, handing him a drink. "We did good," he said, his eyes warm. Yeah, Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. We really did. Later, Ethan took the microphone, his confidence surprising everyone. I just want to say thanks, he said, his voice carrying over the chatter. To my dad, for always being there. And to Marcus for being pretty cool, too. The crowd laughed, but Daniel's eyes stung with tears. Ethan's words were more than gratitude. They were a declaration of acceptance, of love, of family. But life, as Daniel had learned, was never without its tests. A few weeks later, Ethan came home from school, his face pale. Dad, we need to talk. They sat in the living room, the same place where Daniel had come out months ago. Ethan's hands twisted together, his voice low. Tyler's been talking again. Not just to me, to everyone. Posting stuff online. About you and Marcus. Daniel's blood ran cold. What kind of stuff? Ethan hesitated, then handed Daniel his phone. The post was from Tyler's ex account. A cruel jab about Daniel's sexuality, laced with slurs and mocking emojis. It had likes, retweets, comments, some supportive but others vicious. Daniel's hands shook, but he kept his voice steady. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. I'm not ashamed of you, Dad. I'm pissed at them, but I don't know how to make it stop. Marcus, who had just arrived, overheard the conversation. We report it, he said firmly, and we don't let people like Tyler define us. Together, they reported the post, and Daniel contacted the school. But the real work happened at home. Over the next few days, they talked about hate, about resilience, about the world they wanted to build. Ethan, once hesitant, now spoke with conviction. I want to do something, he said, like start a club at school. For kids like me with parents like you, so they know they're not alone. Daniel's heart swelled. That's a big idea, Ethan. I'm serious, Ethan said. You taught me to stand up for what's right. This is me doing that. With Marcus's help, Ethan launched the club, called Family Forward. It was small at first, meeting in a classroom after school, but it grew, drawing kids with LGBTQ plus parents or siblings, and allies who wanted to learn. Ethan's passion shone, his spoken word performances becoming a centerpiece of their meetings. One evening, Daniel and Marcus attended a school event where Ethan presented a new poem. It was fierce, hopeful, weaving their story. Daniel's coming out, Ethan's journey, their family's strength. The final line, love doesn't hide, and neither will we, brought the room to its feet. Afterward, a girl approached Ethan, her voice shy. My mom's gay too. I didn't know how to talk about it until I heard you. Ethan smiled, glancing at Daniel. You just start talking. It gets easier. Daniel felt a lump in his throat, pride and love overwhelming him. Marcus leaned close, whispering, he's changing the world, you know? As winter returned, Daniel stood on the stone bridge in Central Park, Marcus beside him, their hands clasped. Ethan was nearby, tossing a football with friends, his laughter echoing. The moment felt like a snapshot of everything they'd fought for: truth, love, family. Ethan jogged over, his cheeks flushed. You guys look all sappy again, he teased. Daniel laughed, ruffling his son's hair. Get used to it, kid. Ethan grinned, then grew serious. I'm proud of you, Dad, for being you, and I'm proud of us. Daniel pulled him into a hug, Marcus joining in, their arms forming a circle that felt unbreakable. The world wasn't perfect. There would always be Tylers, always be challenges, but they had each other, and that was enough. In that moment, Daniel knew Ethan's response had changed everything forever. Not just for him, but for everyone their story touched. They weren't just a family. They were a testament to courage, to love, to the power of truth.